Imagine walking into a room where no one dares to underestimate you, not because you are the loudest voice, not because you threaten people, not because you demand attention, but because your presence alone communicates something undeniable. Disrespecting you is a mistake. People often believe that respect is something others choose to give, as though it depends entirely on their opinions, moods, or personalities. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. Respect begins long before another person decides how to treat you. It begins with the standards you establish for yourself. Every interaction you have sends signals about your self-worth. The way you speak, the way you respond to criticism, the way you protect your time, and the way you react when someone crosses a line all communicate one silent message. This is how I expect to be treated. Most people never realize they are teaching others how to treat them every single day. They assume disrespect comes from cruel people, but in many cases it grows because they unknowingly allow it to continue. Human nature constantly searches for limits. People test boundaries not always out of malice, but out of curiosity. They want to know what they can get away with. If they interrupt you and you remain silent, they learn that your voice is easy to ignore. If they cancel plans repeatedly without consideration and you continue making yourself available, they learn that your time has little value. If they insult you under the disguise of humor and you laugh along despite feeling hurt, they learn that your dignity has no real protection. Every compromise made against your own self-respect becomes a lesson for others. This is why powerful individuals never wait for others to define their worth. They define it themselves through consistent behavior. They understand that confidence is not something you announce with loud words or dramatic gestures. It is reflected in quiet certainty. A person who genuinely values themselves does not chase acceptance because they already possess the one form of approval that matters most, their own. This inner certainty changes everything. It changes posture, tone of voice, decisions, and reactions. It removes the desperate need to convince people of your importance because true value never needs constant advertisement. Imagine two people entering the same room. One tries to impress everyone by speaking excessively, agreeing with every opinion, and seeking validation in every conversation. The other speaks only when they have something meaningful to contribute, listens carefully, and remains comfortable even when attention shifts elsewhere. Which person appears more secure? Which person naturally attracts respect? The answer has little to do with talent or intelligence. It has everything to do with the invisible confidence that comes from self-respect. There is another psychological truth that many ignore. The way you treat yourself becomes permission for others to do the same. If you constantly apologize for existing, minimize your achievements, or accept treatment that contradicts your values, people unconsciously assume that this is acceptable. On the other hand, when you protect your peace, honor your commitments, and refuse to tolerate unnecessary disrespect, people begin adjusting their behavior around you. They recognize that there are standards they cannot casually violate. This does not happen because you threaten them. It happens because consistency is persuasive. Human beings trust actions more than words. Anyone can say they deserve respect, but very few demonstrate it through disciplined choices every day. One of the greatest traps in life is believing that being agreeable guarantees respect. It often guarantees comfort, but not admiration. People appreciate kindness, but they respect those who combine kindness with strength. A person who never says no eventually loses the value of saying yes. A person who sacrifices their principles to avoid conflict slowly teaches others that their boundaries are negotiable. Strength is not about dominating people or refusing to compromise. It is about knowing which values are non-negotiable and protecting them without guilt. Every time you honor those values, your confidence grows. Every time you betray them, your confidence weakens. That is why self-respect cannot be separated from self-discipline. The promises you keep to yourself become the foundation of your identity. Ultimately, the respect you receive from the world is often a reflection of the respect you consistently show yourself. When your standards are clear, your actions align with your values, and your confidence comes from within rather than from approval, people begin to recognize that crossing your boundaries carries consequences. They understand that your dignity is not available for negotiation, and that realization alone becomes the quiet force that commands lasting respect. One of the greatest misconceptions about power is the belief that the strongest person is the one who reacts the fastest. Society often celebrates dramatic confrontations, loud arguments, and emotional displays as signs of confidence. But history, psychology, and human nature reveal a very different truth. The person who immediately loses control of their emotions also loses control of the situation. Every emotional outburst hands power to the person who provoked it. The moment someone can dictate your feelings, influence your reactions, or disrupt your peace of mind, they have gained an advantage over you. This is why truly powerful individuals understand that silence is not weakness, it is strategy, it is discipline. It is the ability to remain composed while everyone else expects chaos. Most acts of disrespect are designed to produce a reaction. Someone interrupts you in a meeting, dismisses your opinion, mocks your ideas, or speaks to you with unnecessary arrogance. In these moments, emotions naturally begin to rise. Anger tells you to respond immediately. Pride urges you to defend yourself without hesitation. Fear whispers that if you stay quiet, people will think you are weak. But emotions rarely offer wise advice in the heat of conflict. Those who react instantly often say things they later regret, reveal their insecurities, and expose exactly which buttons can be pushed in the future. Once someone discovers what easily disturbs you, they possess a map of your emotional weaknesses. That knowledge becomes a weapon they can use repeatedly. Silence interrupts this process completely. When you refuse to react impulsively, you create uncertainty. The person expecting an argument suddenly receives nothing they anticipated. They begin questioning whether they misjudged you. They wonder whether you noticed the insult or whether you simply considered it too insignificant to deserve a response. This uncertainty shifts the psychological balance. People are comfortable when they can predict others. They become uncomfortable when they cannot read them. Calmness creates mystery, and mystery often commands respect because it suggests hidden strength rather than exposed vulnerability. Remaining silent does not mean accepting disrespect forever. It means refusing to let emotions choose your response. There is a significant difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is immediate, emotional, and often driven by wounded pride. A response is deliberate, controlled, and guided by purpose. The strongest individuals understand that timing is just as important as words. They allow emotions to settle before deciding whether action is even necessary. Sometimes the greatest response is saying very little. Other times it is calmly setting a boundary or removing yourself from the situation entirely. Because the decision is made with clarity rather than anger, it carries far greater weight. Silence also communicates confidence. People who constantly explain themselves or defend every criticism often appear uncertain about their own value. They feel compelled to prove they are right because they secretly fear being misunderstood. Confident people rarely feel this urgency. They understand that not every opinion deserves attention, and not every insult deserves a reply. Their peace is too valuable to exchange for meaningless conflict. This selective use of words makes everything they eventually say more powerful. When someone who usually remains calm finally speaks, others naturally pay closer attention because they know those words were chosen carefully rather than emotionally. Another reason silence is so effective is that it prevents others from controlling the direction of a conversation. Emotional arguments usually benefit the person who initiated them. They drag you into their frame, forcing you to defend yourself instead of maintaining your own position. Calm silence refuses to play that game. It keeps you grounded in your own emotional center while allowing the other person to reveal their own lack of control. Ironically, people who cannot master themselves often expose their weaknesses the longer they continue speaking. They become louder, more defensive, and increasingly irrational, while your composure quietly highlights the difference between discipline and impulsiveness. Self-control is one of the rarest forms of power because it cannot be faked for long. Anyone can pretend to be confident when life is easy, but genuine emotional discipline appears only when challenged. The ability to remain calm under pressure tells people that your confidence does not depend on their approval, their insults, or their attempts to provoke you. It tells them your mind belongs to you alone. Over time, this reputation becomes more intimidating than any angry confrontation ever could. People become cautious around those who cannot be manipulated emotionally because they know their usual tactics no longer work. That quiet certainty, built through patience and discipline, becomes one of the strongest foundations of lasting respect. Many people misunderstand the purpose of consequences. They believe that every act of disrespect must be answered with anger, revenge, or retaliation. They imagine power as the ability to make others suffer for crossing them. But this way of thinking often traps people in endless cycles of conflict, draining their energy while giving their opponents exactly what they want, attention. True power does not come from revenge. It comes from discipline. It comes from creating an environment where people clearly understand that every action has a natural consequence. When consequences are calm, consistent, and predictable, they command far more respect than emotional retaliation ever could. The goal is never to destroy another person. The goal is to protect your own dignity without sacrificing your peace of mind. Human nature is deeply influenced by patterns. People quickly learn what behaviors are rewarded and what behaviors carry a cost. If someone repeatedly disrespects you and nothing changes, they unconsciously conclude that their behavior is acceptable. They may not even realize they are doing it, but your silence without action becomes permission. On the other hand, if every violation of your boundaries results in the loss of your trust, your attention, or your presence, people begin to recognize that disrespect has a price. Notice that none of these consequences require shouting, threats, or dramatic confrontations. They simply require consistency. The strongest boundaries are enforced through actions, not speeches. Words may impress people for a moment, but behavior teaches lessons that are remembered for years. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing revenge with justice. Revenge is emotional. It seeks satisfaction through another person's pain. Justice is balanced. It seeks fairness through accountability. When someone insults you, betrays your trust, or repeatedly ignores your boundaries, revenge urges you to embarrass them publicly or hurt them in return. But such actions often damage your own reputation more than theirs. People begin to see you as unpredictable or emotionally unstable. The person who maintains composure while quietly enforcing consequences appears far stronger. They never need to convince others that they deserve respect because their actions communicate that message without unnecessary drama. Imagine someone in your life who constantly ignores your time. They arrive late, cancel plans without warning, or only contact you when they need something. Many people respond by arguing, complaining, or demanding change. Yet these conversations often produce temporary apologies rather than lasting respect. A more powerful approach is to quietly reduce your availability. Stop rearranging your schedule for someone who refuses to value it. Stop investing energy where there is no reciprocity. Without anger or resentment, simply allow your actions to reflect your standards. Eventually, they notice that access to you is no longer guaranteed. This realization carries far greater psychological weight than any emotional lecture could. Consequences also reveal your level of self-respect. Every decision you make sends a message about what you believe you deserve. If you repeatedly forgive behavior that violates your values without any meaningful change, you teach yourself that your standards are optional. Over time, this weakens your confidence because your actions contradict your principles. But when you calmly enforce boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable, you strengthen your identity. You prove to yourself that your values are real. This inner consistency becomes visible to others. Confidence grows naturally when your behavior aligns with your beliefs. Another important principle is that consequences should always be proportional. Not every mistake deserves the same response. Emotion often exaggerates situations, making small problems appear enormous. Wisdom requires discernment. Sometimes a simple conversation is enough. Sometimes distance is necessary. Sometimes ending a relationship becomes the healthiest choice. The purpose is not punishment but protection. Your energy, your peace, and your dignity are valuable resources. They should never be sacrificed merely to prove a point. People who understand this rarely waste time fighting battles that offer no meaningful reward. Powerful individuals also understand that they cannot control another person's behavior. They cannot force respect, loyalty, or honesty. What they can control is their response. They decide who receives their trust, who earns their time, and who deserves continued access to their life. This mindset shifts attention away from changing others and toward mastering oneself. Instead of asking, how do I make this person respect me? They ask, what standards will I consistently uphold regardless of how others behave? That question transforms everything because it places power back where it belongs. Over time, people begin to recognize those who quietly enforce their boundaries. They notice that disrespect is never met with emotional chaos, but it is never ignored either. There is always a consequence, delivered with calm certainty rather than anger. That consistency creates a reputation that discourages future disrespect before it even begins. Others become more thoughtful with their words and more careful with their actions because they understand that your dignity is protected by discipline, not emotion. In the end, the most powerful consequence is not revenge at all. It is the quiet confidence to walk away from anything that repeatedly asks you to abandon your own self-respect. One of the greatest illusions in human relationships is the belief that constant availability creates deeper respect. Many people assume that if they are always present, always replying instantly, always saying yes, and always making themselves easy to reach, others will appreciate them more. In reality, human psychology often works in the opposite direction. What is constantly available is frequently taken for granted. What is scarce becomes valuable. This is not merely a principle of economics. It is a principle of human behavior. People naturally assign greater importance to what is difficult to obtain. This is why mastering the art of controlled distance can dramatically change how others perceive you. Controlled distance is not about playing childish games or pretending not to care. It is about understanding that your time, energy, and attention are valuable resources, and they should never be given away without purpose. Many individuals unknowingly weaken their own influence because they fear disappointing others. They answer every message immediately, accept every invitation, and constantly rearrange their priorities to fit someone else's schedule. At first, this behavior may appear generous, but over time it creates an unhealthy expectation. People stop seeing your presence as a privilege and begin treating it as an obligation. They assume you will always be there regardless of how they behave. The mystery disappears, and with it, much of the respect that comes from recognizing another person's independence. True confidence is reflected in someone who values their own priorities enough to protect them. They are available because they choose to be, not because they are afraid of being forgotten. Human beings are naturally curious about what they cannot completely understand. When someone becomes entirely predictable, they lose a certain psychological advantage. If everyone knows exactly how you will react, when you will appear, and how easily they can access your attention, there is little reason to appreciate your presence. Controlled distance introduces uncertainty in a healthy way. It reminds people that your life is full, your goals matter, and your happiness does not depend on constant interaction with them. This quiet independence often creates more admiration than endless efforts to gain approval. People begin to wonder what occupies your time, what inspires your focus, and why your attention cannot be taken for granted. Curiosity naturally increases perceived value. It is important to understand that controlled distance is not emotional manipulation. There is a significant difference between protecting your peace and deliberately making someone anxious for personal gain. Manipulation seeks control through confusion. Wisdom seeks balance through self-respect. When you occasionally step back to focus on your own growth, your work, your health, or your personal ambitions, you are not punishing anyone. You are reminding yourself that your identity extends beyond any single relationship. This kind of independence creates emotional stability because your happiness is no longer tied to another person's constant validation or attention. One reason controlled distance is so powerful is that it reveals the true nature of relationships. When you stop chasing people, their genuine intentions become visible. Those who value you continue making an effort to remain connected. Those who benefited only from your constant availability slowly disappear. While this realization may feel disappointing at first, it is actually liberating. It saves you from investing years into one-sided relationships built on convenience rather than mutual respect. Distance does not create disloyalty, it simply exposes what was already there beneath the surface. History repeatedly shows that influential individuals understood the importance of selective presence. They did not attend every argument, answer every criticism, or involve themselves in every conflict. Their attention was intentional. Because they chose carefully where to invest their energy, every appearance carried greater significance. The same principle applies in everyday life. If you constantly explain yourself, defend every decision, or seek acceptance from everyone around you, your words gradually lose their impact. But when you speak with purpose and remain absent from unnecessary drama, your voice gains weight. People listen more carefully because they know you do not waste words. Controlled distance also protects emotional balance. Constant exposure to negativity, criticism, or demanding personalities slowly drains confidence. Many people fail to recognize that protecting their environment is just as important as protecting their boundaries. Sometimes the most powerful decision is simply creating space between yourself and those who consistently disrupt your peace. This is not an act of hostility, but an act of wisdom. Distance allows emotions to settle, perspective to return, and better decisions to emerge. Instead of reacting impulsively, you gain the clarity needed to decide whether a relationship deserves continued investment. Perhaps the greatest benefit of controlled distance is that it strengthens your relationship with yourself. Solitude teaches lessons that constant social interaction cannot. It reminds you that your value is not measured by how many people seek your attention, but by how faithfully you pursue your own purpose. The more comfortable you become with your own company, the less vulnerable you become to manipulation, rejection, or disrespect. Others begin to recognize that your presence is offered freely rather than desperately. They understand that access to your time is earned through mutual respect, not assumed through familiarity. That quiet confidence transforms the way people interact with you because they sense that your life remains meaningful whether they choose to value it or not. Your reputation is one of the few forms of power that continues working even when you are not present. Before you enter a room, people have often already formed opinions about you based on your past actions, your consistency, and the stories others tell about you. This is why building a reputation that commands respect is far more valuable than trying to win every argument or prove yourself in every conversation. A strong reputation quietly protects you from unnecessary disrespect because people know what you stand for. They understand that you are reliable, disciplined, and unwilling to compromise your values for temporary approval. Many people spend enormous energy trying to create the perfect image, believing that appearance alone will earn admiration. But image without substance eventually collapses. A confident voice means little if your actions constantly contradict your words. Human beings naturally trust patterns more than promises. If you consistently keep your word, arrive prepared, respect your own time, and refuse to engage in petty behavior, people begin associating your name with strength and integrity. That reputation becomes your silent introduction wherever you go. Consistency is the foundation of credibility. Anyone can appear confident for a single day or act disciplined when circumstances are easy. The true test comes during pressure, disappointment, or conflict. When people see that you remain calm under stress, refuse to gossip, and continue acting according to your principles even when no one is watching, they recognize a level of character that cannot be easily shaken. Respect grows because your behavior is predictable in the best possible way. Others know they can trust your standards. A powerful reputation also discourages manipulation. Those who look for easy targets usually avoid people known for strong boundaries and emotional control. They prefer individuals who constantly seek approval or fear confrontation. When your reputation reflects quiet confidence rather than insecurity, many acts of disrespect disappear before they even begin because people understand there will be consequences for crossing your limits. Most importantly, remember that reputation is built slowly through hundreds of small decisions, not one dramatic moment. Every promise you keep, every boundary you enforce, every challenge you face with dignity, and every action that reflects your values adds another layer to your character. Over time, people stop respecting you because of what you say and begin respecting you because of who you consistently prove yourself to be. Many people believe that power comes from intimidation. They assume the strongest person is the one who speaks the loudest, dominates every conversation, or makes others feel afraid. But genuine power has never depended on fear alone. History repeatedly shows that those who rely on intimidation eventually lose influence because fear fades when people recognize insecurity hiding beneath aggression. Real authority comes from something much deeper: self-control. The person who has mastered their own emotions, impulses, and desires possesses a strength that cannot easily be challenged. Before you can influence the world around you, you must first learn to govern yourself. Self-control begins with emotional discipline. Every day, people will test your patience, question your abilities, and sometimes even disrespect your character. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself immediately or prove your worth. Yet every impulsive reaction gives others insight into your emotional weaknesses. When someone can predict exactly how you will respond, they gain a measure of control over you. A calm and disciplined person refuses to surrender that control. They pause, think carefully, and respond with purpose rather than emotion. This quiet restraint often leaves a stronger impression than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Another form of self-control is the ability to resist the constant need for approval. Many people unknowingly become prisoners of other people's opinions. They change their behavior to fit expectations, remain silent when their values are challenged, or accept disrespect because they fear rejection. This dependence weakens confidence from within. True strength appears when your sense of worth comes from your principles instead of public validation. When you no longer need everyone to like you, you become far more difficult to manipulate. Others recognize that your decisions are guided by conviction rather than insecurity, and that realization naturally commands respect. Self-control also means mastering your words. Once spoken, words cannot be taken back. In moments of anger, people often reveal secrets, make threats, or say things they regret for years. Wise individuals understand that silence is frequently more powerful than unnecessary speech. They choose their words carefully because they know that every sentence either strengthens or weakens their reputation. Speaking less but saying something meaningful creates an image of confidence and thoughtful leadership. Perhaps the greatest test of self-control is remaining committed to your values when no one is watching. It is easy to appear disciplined in front of others, but true character is revealed in private decisions. Keeping promises to yourself, staying focused on long-term goals, and refusing to compromise your integrity build a quiet confidence that no external praise can replace. Every small act of discipline strengthens your identity, making you less vulnerable to temptation and emotional instability. People naturally admire individuals who remain steady during uncertainty. When everyone else reacts with panic, the calm person becomes the source of stability. When others waste energy arguing over small conflicts, the disciplined person stays focused on what truly matters. This ability to remain centered under pressure is rare, and rarity creates value. Over time, people begin trusting your judgment because they know your decisions are not controlled by fleeting emotions. In the end, lasting influence does not come from making people fear your anger. It comes from making them respect your discipline. They recognize that you cannot be easily provoked, manipulated, or distracted from your purpose. Your confidence is not built on pride, but on consistent self-mastery. That is the highest form of power because the person who has complete control over themselves never needs to force others to recognize their strength. Their actions, composure, and unwavering character speak more loudly than intimidation ever could.